I didn't test it enough. Okay, the next one's the big one, create. Now, it's got some variables here that we're not using, a level number and a group. We may change this later. I just left it because I copied it from our last game. But what we do here is we create a display group. I'm going to use display current stage by default, which is the group at the top, the one that contains everything. And then, as I said, I call destroy. Now, the first time through, that will do nothing useful, but it still executes, doesn't do anything bad. The next thing I do is I create a complex sequence of groups that are nested in such a way that will allow me to render everything I need for our game. So if I want to have a background texture that does not move, I can have that as the bottom layer in the background group. Then we're going to have a camera, and we're not going to be able to do it today, but our camera is going to need a group that has layers inside of it to handle moving the player and the other content and keeping it all aligned. And so what I've chosen to do is create a group called World, and within that I have Underlay, which is the bottom layer, Content, which is the middle layer where most things go. For example, Underlay will contain all the textures for the ground, whereas the player and the arrows and the bad guys will all go in Content. And then if let's say I add some clouds or just some random thing that needs to be over both of those other ones, I would put that in Overlay. All of these are a child of World. So if World moves, these move. That's the key. We'll come back to that later, but that's how basically cameras work. Is you move a group that contains groups, and everything within those groups moves at once. Moves 10 to the left, 10 to the right, up and down. And we'll come back to it. We've talked about cameras before, but one thing that we're doing that's differently this time is I'm giving you guys a module, which is just a plain Jane camera, from which you can learn to write your own camera modules instead of using SSK or some complicated one like previously. The only other layer we have here is the interfaces layer for things like the score counter and buttons that must always float above the world, not be part of the content, not be part of the camera, and so that's what that layer is for. And then I will let people read through this code, but I've shown you in this little comment here the layering from bottom to top and the nesting. And then you should read through these and see what I've done as far as creation and insertion to verify for yourself that I am in fact creating this hierarchy by following these steps. This is one of the things that new developers don't understand, which is they can change the layering order simply by inserting groups within groups or to front, to back, etc. Those calls. And so that's what I'm doing here to get the hierarchy that I've shown. Okay, so there's not much left here. The only thing we got so far is the reticle and the player. So I create a reticle and I create a player, and I'm using some some functions within game Lua, which are further down. We're not going to talk about them today because there won't be time. But next week we will launch into this part, which is basically creating the reticle, which we've talked about a little bit before. But I'll show it in the context of this game. And then creating player, and the big thing that we'll be learning next week is how to deal with pointing at the reticle, making sure the player faces the reticle, and walks forward in the direction that he is facing at the time that you press the forward key on your keyboard, which is W. And that is it. All the rest of the stuff is for next week.
Excellent.
So
excellent. Exciting. I'm looking forward to
get people in here. They can start looking at it now and tearing it apart.
Yeah.
I won't tell you how the rest works until next week.
Which they should be. I mean, the link to this will be in the show notes, so you can download the code and go back through, look at it yourself. If there's something you don't understand, go back and watch the video. But yeah, from between now and then, you should be taking a look at the code and seeing how it all. And go ahead and read ahead. Just like in school, in college or high school or whatever. You read ahead. That way you'll be prepared for the next class, and you can ask questions or whatever in the comments, and we'll go from there. Awesome. This is shaping up to be good. I'm interested. I tell you what, you piqued my curiosity when you talked about having portals where we could jump between the levels and stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to be able to jump back and forth between levels in this game.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that piece. I mean, the cameras are definitely something that we needed to cover. Being able to move the player around.
Yeah. The basic stuff, but
yeah.
The inner level stuff is something we've never done before.
And that's why I like these series that we do. Each one has its own personality. There's something new that we cover that you could certainly go back and watch any one of the mobile development series that we've done so far and get some of these concepts and then come back here and just keep going, right? You just build on top of your base of knowledge. So I like it. I like it a lot. All right, sir.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this week was a mad rush. I think to this point we've been doing sort of like a mad rushing, and I've been like, look at this, and this piece of code does that, and this is this decision. We've hit the point now where we are settled down, so if people are feeling like this is too fast for them, it's going to slow down next week. Next week, we're going to be taking a close look at each element and focusing on that element. So yes, I will give clues and hints to upcoming features, but I realize that this series has probably been a little bit hard to follow at times, so I'm going to slow down enough so that people really get a grasp of the individual concepts we're working on.
Okay. So. Yeah, and do download the code and go through it, because you can't replace that element of things. You can explain this stuff until you're blue in the face. But until somebody downloads the code and just goes in and messes with the values and sees what the result is, it's not really going to be, not really building the neurons in their brain that they need to. And so download the code, play with it. Worst case scenario is you got a zip file on your desktop, right, that you have to unzip again because you screwed everything up.
Yeah, break it. By all means, break it. I encourage people to break this code over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, break it, and then try to and then take a moment to try to figure out what you broke. Right, and how to fix it, because that's invaluable as well. But if you can't, and you don't, spend too much time, you can always just unzip the thing and start over again. It's no big deal.
It's not like I'm going to delete the file after you download it.
Yeah, this is the Etch-a-Sketch of code.
No, you can only download it once. Sorry, that's it. One-time downloads only.
Right. Yeah, the fully open source model. You can only download it once.
That's right. That's the instant download model.
Right. That's the boss level. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. We'll be back here next Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific. We will continue our desktop series, and like I said, go over to youtube.com/coronageek and find all the other videos there. And while you're online, while you're at your computer, go to burtonsmediagroup.com. Go to roaminggamer.com. And then also go to ebabastudios.com, which I'm not probably still pronouncing that right, but there will be links in the show notes, and you can find it there. So go and check all of those out, because we got a great brain trust here on the panel, and they do some great stuff. All right, until next week, have a great time and happy coding.
Adios.
Bye.